Welcome to the Clear the Shelf podcast with Chris and Chris, the show that meets at the intersection of education and entertainment to discuss online arbitrage, retail arbitrage, wholesale, and all facets of selling on Amazon. We'll bring you news, tactics, strategies, insights, stories, and interviews to help you grow your Amazon business. And now, here are your hosts, Chris Grant and Chris Rasick. What's up, Amazon sellers, and welcome back to the Clear the Shelf podcast with myself and my pecunious co-host, Chris Rasick. This week, we'll be talking about capital. And the adjective this week is actually apropos because pecunious means wealthy or with a lot of money.
Spread more lies.
We're going to be talking about capital this week. We're going to be talking about where to get it, how to make more of it, and why you need to try to keep as much of it as you can, obviously. But before we dive in, you know the drill. We have spent a grand total of several minutes preparing for this episode for you people. So I'd like to propose a little bit of a gentleman's agreement. If you get a nugget or two of info that can help you and your Amazon business from this episode or any of the other episodes that you've watched, please take a moment and hit subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast player. Now, we're not able to track who actually does this, but if we ever meet in person, we'll know. So hit subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. So, Chris, what's going on this week, man? How you been?
Doing good. It's it feels like the January is finally shaken off a little bit. There's always a period like late January, early February for me that it's like that stick figure drawing where he's poking it with a stick and it's like, come on, Amazon, do something. You know, it's like you're tapping your phone like this is on, right? Yeah, and part of that is getting spoiled. You know, you just kind of wake up to some massive numbers through Q4 and the decompression could be a little bit shocking, but at least to me, it feels like we're moving out of that period, which I am happy about.
I would agree. You know, you get, I don't know, Q4 it's a magical time, and then you immediately have to take it on the chin with Returnuary. Sourcing, you know, at the end of January and into February can be a little bit slow because, you know, there are a couple of holidays, but I don't know. Stores are like they're in an off cycle. You know, they've gotten through all their Q4 inventory. You know, they've clearanced out stuff in January that was left over, and we're just kind of waiting for all the spring stuff to go in. And so I've seen a lot of people be like, you know, it just seems a little bit flat right now. And it is every single year. And we've got such short memories that I think we forget and we're like, oh crap, are we ever going to turn a corner? And fortunately, we always do. So,
yeah,
you know, I shared a Twitter thread this week that I thought was going to be really, really good. And it fell flat on its face, unfortunately. But this week, it was actually yesterday, I absolutely destroyed my son in a game of horse. I mean, it was embarrassing. I was like, son, I know you're 10, but that was embarrassing to get beat by your dad that bad. And now normally when we play horse, you know, I'm throwing it off the side of the house and you know, trying to hit a shot that way and, you know, rolling it down the roof and all kinds of stuff. But I went out and my son gets really hard on himself. And he's like, I'm rusty. I haven't played in 2 days. I can't get my shot right. And so I said, I'll tell you what. I said, we're going to play a game of horse. I said, but I said, afterwards, I'm going to teach you a lesson. Okay. And he's like, all right. So every single shot was a bank shot. Okay. I used the backboard every single shot. No layups. I was usually within 10 to 20 feet for a little jumper.
Mid-range game. Love it.
Yeah, mid-range game, you know, exactly. Yeah, playing ball in the late 90s and early 2000s, it was right where you went for, you know?
Yep.
And he was pissed, man. He was so mad at me. He was like, "How come you're using the backboard? You're cheating. You're cheating." And so afterwards, I'm like, dude, I'm like, here's the thing. I said, it's scientifically proven that from these certain areas, if you use the glass, you've got a 20% greater chance of the ball going in. And that's not true. So I showed him the article that I read. And I was like, it is, and it's backed up here. I think it was a UC Berkeley study or something. And he's like, okay. And he's like, all right. What are these lessons? And I was like, the only reason I could do that, as I said, mostly it's muscle memory. I said, I'm not athletic anymore like I used to be. And I'm like, but you know what I used to do is every single day after practice, after school, after work, I said I would do 50 layups, 50 free throws, 50 mid-range jumpers, and things like that. And I said, and I did that over the course of like 4 or 5 years. And I was like, and it just becomes second nature eventually. Like you grow that muscle memory. Uh, and I was like, I don't even play basketball that much except for with you anymore. I said, but I'm still a student of the game. I'm like, I still, will read articles about basketball. I will watch what guys in the NBA are doing or what, people in college are doing. I watched almost all of All-Star Weekend this past weekend and noticed, that what these guys were doing when they're just having fun is, kind of the same thing you can do when you want to go practice. But anyway, the whole thing of it was, I think there are a lot of similarities between basketball and Amazon, and a couple of them that I brought up to him. I was like, one, I was like, you always got to be learning, and then trying it out, iterating, trying again. And I was like, two, I was like, dude, you got to get your reps in. I'm like, I tell you to do 50 free throws a day. And I said, if you do that for 2, 3, 6 months, I said, you'll shoot 80, 85% from the free throw line. And I think that's applicable to Amazon sellers as well. I don't think, especially newer sellers, at least the messages I've been getting recently, I can't find anything. And I'm like, you got to put in your reps first. I'm like, have you gone through 100? Have you gone through 200 or 500 listings to try to find something that's profitable? And usually it's, well, no, I spent about an hour. But anyway, that was the thread. I thought the thread really was going to hit, and it absolutely fell on its face. But it was good nonetheless.
That's the information that you don't want to hear. You need to hear it, but you don't want to.
Right.
I actually, my son, I have a story. I've told it before, and I'm positive he hates it. And I think he thinks I'm making fun of him when it's actually perfectly natural. But he wanted to be an NBA player, when he was 10 years old, and I asked him. I said, "Well, okay." I said, "Well, what's the plan? I mean, you going to practice dribbling with your left hand? How often? How many shots?" I basically asked him all the questions that you mapped out. And he didn't have the answers to it. Nor do I expect him to, but the lesson, the seed that I wanted to plant was, and this is where it applies to Amazon is, if you want to achieve levels above where you're at now, you have to think about what the steps are to take you there and what you're going to have to do to get there, which in a nutshell is this entire episode. That's kind of the theme of what we're going to talk about. But before we get into the meat of it, we do have to talk about a certain sneaker drop, right?
We do. There's a couple of pieces of news I wanted to bring up and get some reaction. And the first one is the sneaker drop heard around the world this past week. Now, we need to preface this with, we don't care what shade or stripe of politics you believe in. All right, this is just an interesting thing that happened, And it goes to show you that there is opportunity, there's resale opportunities. I mean, it's almost limitless, the resale opportunities that are out there. But this past week, Donald Trump, whether you love him or hate him, he went to a sneaker convention in, I think it was Philly. Yeah, I think it was Philly. And he dropped a pair of shoes. Now, I've heard them called a lot of things. The ugly stepchild of a Jordan 1, and a gold toilet, which you might know Donald Trump had a gold toilet in one of his bathrooms at Trump Tower, I believe. At least
all of his bathrooms, I believe.
Yeah, I that's what I remember from Cribs was his gold toilet more than anything else.
Yeah.
But have you seen these shoes? Have you laid eyes on them?
I did. Yeah.
Okay.
I saw the high top. I only got a brief
Yes.
glimpse at the cheaper model. But
All
yeah,
right.
I did see the high top.
I'm gonna go ahead and pull them up on screen just so everybody can see them. These
There we
things
go.
are ugly as sin. I don't care if you're a sneakerhead. They're ugly. They reminded me of something that a boxer might wear, in the ring. And I was like, okay. Yeah. I was like, I get what they were going for. High top sneaker, ugly as all get out, and they retailed for $400. $399 is what he retailed them for. They were limited to 1,000 pairs. Okay. Now, again, whether you love or hate the guy, the one thing that you cannot discount is the fact that he has a rabid fan base. Okay. Now, who knows how much of the country is as a fan of Donald Trump, but the people who are fans seem to be willing to spend money on just about anything. These shoes included. They sold out very quickly. If Trump said it, I'm sure that they sold out faster than any shoe has sold out ever before in the history of mankind, is what he might say. All right. But I know that they did sell out. What's crazy to me is the resale value on these things. Hey guys, wanted to take a quick second and thank you for listening to the Clear the Shelf podcast. My magnanimous co-host Chris Rasick has put together a gift for you for being a listener. It's called the Monthly Goal Tracking Spreadsheet, and it's free. The spreadsheet will help you break down and track how much you've purchased, which should be a leading indicator of how much you will sell, and then you'll be able to track how much you've sold as well as your estimated monthly profit on a daily basis. This will all feed into the daily averages so you can ensure that you're on track to meet your goals each and every month. Grab it for free today over at cleartheshelf.com/goal-tracking. Thanks again for being a listener. Now back to the show. What I have seen on eBay as of today is a pair sold for $1,999 this morning. Benefits some charity.
Incredible.
Yeah. There is another pair. Now, the eBay sold price says $4,547 or best offer. I have no idea whether that's sold for the actual $4,000, if the person who bought it is actually going to pay for it, or what. But I've seen them all over the place. From that 4,000, I see 5,000. But this is crazy. And the lesson here is that when stock is limited, and this happens all over the place, when stock is limited and you have a rabid fan base, there's always going to be a market for resale. This Donald Trump was just a recent and egregious view into that. But Taylor Swift, she recently sold out an album, and I think it was vinyl that she sold, and I think that they were signed, and there was like 250 of those. Those are selling for insane prices. Another example from this week would be the Wilson basketball. Did you happen to see the new Wilson basketball?
The All-Star editions, right?
No,
or Super Bowl editions.
No, I'm talking the Wilson airless basketball.
Oh, yes, I did see that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, there were also
Wilson,
somebody did an Usher version
that was
of some
also
footballs.
Wilson. Yeah,
Okay.
that was
Yeah,
also
and
Wilson.
those also exploded in the resale market, aftermarket.
Yeah, they did. That one is kind of a trifecta of perfection, in my opinion. You've got Usher, who is popular, recently left his residency in Las Vegas, did the
Hmm.
Super Bowl, which I don't know, you probably know, but a lot of people probably don't know. People who perform at the halftime show, they do it for free.
Hmm.
Not a lot of people, I would imagine a lot of people think that those acts get paid pretty good money. But the NFL somehow talked them into doing it 100% for free. But
Yeah.
all the stuff that they can sell afterwards makes up for it. Oh, I would imagine
Yeah.
Usher probably got a cut of those Wilson footballs that sold. Um, and last year, Rihanna, for like 3 seconds, held up her makeup, and they said that it sold something like $7 million of
Yep.
makeup within a couple hours of that happening. So, I mean, the power is definitely worth going and performing for free. Uh, but the Wilson airless basketball, they dropped 250 of them for $2,500 a piece. And I have seen them reselling on eBay for $5,000 and up because people want to get their hands on one so bad.
Right. Yeah.
So,
And
always.
it's that, and not just to make sure we didn't lose anybody with the political spin. You really have to remove the politics from it, because the bigger lesson, like you're talking about, is the opportunity. You need to
Mhm.
see, you need to know what the market is. And I'll give you an even simpler example, something not flashy at all. We might lose people because of my take on this, but uh, personally, I think organic food and non-GMO labeled foods are complete BS. If you follow my personal socials, I get a bit vocal about it. I think it's just a marketing scheme, and but whatnot. Don't I can hear radios clicking off right now, and in YouTube windows closing, but I sell a ton of it, right? And I
Mhm.
love to sell it, because the market that believes in this, that believes that it's healthier overall, know that they have to pay more,
Mhm.
and that's what I want to tap into. That's why I look anything, if it says organic on it, I pay a little bit extra attention to it, because I
Yeah.
know there's extra money in it. And that's the everyday example of kind of siphoning down what you're talking about with these big releases. It's all over the place. It's a little bit more common than maybe we realize.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, heck, look at every single Scotty Cameron drop.
Yeah.
For those of you who may not know, Scotty Cameron is a golfer who's rather famous at this moment. But every single one of his drops seem to absolutely crush in the resale market.
Well, even
Now,
if you see one of his old putters at eBay, I mean, they
mhm.
retain so much value,
Oh
because
yeah,
I don't, to the non golfers out there, um, it the very last thing you will ever blame as a golfer is your own swing, your own technique, right? So
correct.
it's constantly the club, or maybe your if your golf glove gets a hole in it, that clearly affects your rotation, and your mechanics, and it'll easily throw you off playing with your backswing. um, BS alerts going off right now.
Yep.
but but we blame everything except ourselves, so that golfers are um, excellent consumers. They get very, very good grades, because they're always willing to buy better quality or a new version. Yeah, like, there is no putter. Like, I'm realistic. I'm a terrible putter.
Hmm.
Short game in general is just, it's pathetic. It's like I've never played the game before. It flies in the face of my personal experience of playing since I was a kid. Uh, I know there's no putter that is going to help. Get the ball in the hole. But there are plenty of people out there that will try, and
Absolutely.
maybe you just need a different look as you look down, and it's not the $50 that you got riding on it, and your sweaty palms, and your buddy in the golf carts who's going to make fun of you if you miss that 4-footer. But
Right. Yeah. I love being told, 8 times around to hit it with my handbag next time because I pulled up short. Uh, you know.
right.
uh Now, one other thing I want to say, the Trump sneaker, that one was kind of an over the top example. Uh and talking about this kind of stuff, you don't have to sacrifice your own personal ethics or anything like that to make a buck. There's so many different opportunities. Like I know people who absolutely will not sell anything even remotely related to the, say, firearms category, and that's fine. There are going to be things that are just as profitable in the sports category and the tools and home improvement and all kinds of things. You see that with every time Chip and Joanna Gaines drop a new spoon holder at Target, people go absolutely nuts for them. So now there's another little news that came out this week, and I don't know. I haven't seen much fanfare over it, but I found it really, really interesting. It's something I've been waiting to see drop for a week or two. Walmart came out with their Q4 numbers and their 2023 numbers, and Walmart is kind of crushing. They hit 100 billion in e-commerce sales in 2023. And I know that, for those of us who are, Amazon sellers, it's okay. Those are rookie numbers. Let's get those up. Because that's under 20% of what Amazon does in a year. But they're making progress. The growth was really good. I think they grew something like 20% year over year with their e-commerce numbers, and that's solid. And that's an opportunity for anybody who wants to have some multi-channel opportunities. Matter of fact, I want to shout out a guy that we both know, Joey Wheeler. You know Joey on Twitter, right?
Mm-hmm.
The guy, his hustle seems to be unmatched. A couple of weeks ago, he got suspended on Amazon, and he immediately pivoted and made sure to get open a Walmart account and sell on eBay. And now he's crushing on both Walmart and Amazon, and he's continuing eBay. And it's a testament to his hustle, but it's also a testament to the opportunity that's out there, because Walmart's still kind of like the Wild West, the early days of Amazon. So,
Mm-hmm.
but one of the other things that I found really interesting is I'd heard some analysts say that Amazon may overtake Walmart in total gross merchandise volume pretty soon. And I was like, I don't know. I figured we still had a few more years because Walmart's massive. There's like 75% of the country is within 10 miles of a Walmart. Well, last year, in 2023, Amazon did $574 billion in total retail sales. Walmart's numbers came in at just over 600 billion. It's like $605 billion. So Amazon doesn't have to go that far until they're bigger than Walmart in terms of total sales, which boggles my mind. Who would have thought that 15 years ago?
Right. I mean, it's amazing. It's almost like two opposite points. They're each gaining on each other in different aspects. But I think collectively, those two bits and Walmart's numbers in these reports, they were very good, right?
Mm-hmm.
The stock price jumped. These are very very positive. I think they beat analyst estimates and whatnot. And you kind of go back to the landscape as it is. You kind of have a bunch of people still thinking the economy stinks, and plenty of people think a recession. It's kind of changing the wording now to a soft landing now, as people are coming around that the indicators simply aren't there. But we know in the consumer's mind, they're kind of the last person to get that information that, no, the economy isn't that bad. They like to kind of hang on. You like to place the negativity in your own life and hang as much on the economy as you can sometimes. But look at the retail landscape. Look at how many brick and mortar retail shops are closing their doors, or everything's behind cases. With the Walmarts or Walgreens, excuse me, and I think CVS is doing it. Rite Aid is scheduled to close a whole bunch, which Walgreens owns them. But it's not a rosy picture as far as brick and mortar retail goes. So for Walmart to come out with these numbers, I mean, sure, a lot of it is owing to the e-commerce success, but that's pretty strong. It's a good indication. Like if you're in tune to those Amazon sellers that knew Amazon before it was cool, so to speak. You hear those stories of getting in early.
Mm-hmm.
You got to kind of consider if this is the entry point for Walmart. If it, because it's not like it's a startup. It's not this young company. That you're not sure. I mean, we pretty much know how Walmart rolls. So if they actually get this right and something clicks into gear, you could easily see it exploding. But then at the same time, Amazon continues to, I don't know. This is like the Mark McGuire, Sammy Sosa home run chase. It's like the two of them. I forget who was in third place, but they were pretty far behind.
Yeah. I don't ever see anybody catching up, of course, to Amazon and Walmart. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. Walmart's going to have a lot of catching up to do in the logistics side. And that's what, in my opinion, would keep them from being able to ever outpace Amazon is just because how far behind they must be there. But I don't know. Well, it'll be interesting to see over the next 5 years how this battle goes down.
Yep. And hopefully we're along for the ride, making money.
Right. All right. So 25 minutes of us blathering on. Let's talk about capital. Okay. So, I mean, everyone aspires to be, I want to be $1 million seller. And in the research for this episode, Chris pulled out a really interesting point. If you want to sell $1 million on Amazon, you need to have somewhere between 400,000 and 600,000 to buy inventory to get there. Now, the cool thing about an Amazon business that you couldn't necessarily do in a regular brick and mortar business is that because of the speed at which you can churn your inventory over, you don't necessarily need 400,000 in cold hard cash in your pocket, because you've got something like the speed of money. And so let's talk about that first. You can start with $500. Matter of fact, if you I started with less than $500 when I started selling on Amazon. And if you read threads on Twitter or anywhere else, you're going to see that kind of thing quite a bit. You can start with X amount of dollars. But you need to be aware of how to grow that capital as quickly as possible. And one of those ways is the speed of money. Now, we've got a loose rule here on the show where we don't do public math, but I'm going to break that for today. And fortunately, I have this written down, although I'm sure someone will say in the comments, your math was wrong here or there. So if any math is wrong, that's the way it is. I'm not good at it, and I don't have ChatGPT up to fix my math equations here. All right. But let's just imagine that you start with $100 to spend on inventory, and you go by a set of rules that was given to you, and you require a 50% ROI. Okay. And you don't, that's it, 50% ROI. And you're able to flip your capital one time every 60 days, which that's a lot faster than you could in a brick and mortar business. All right. Most brick and mortar, Target, Walmart, stuff like that, they're looking to turn their inventory something like 3.2 to 4 times per year. The last time I went and studied this. If you flip your inventory once every 60 days, that would be 6 times a year. Okay. So you take that $100, you multiply it by the 1.5 and to the power of 6, or 6 inventory turns. And at the end of 12 months, you can take that $100 and you would have approximately $1,139. You would have 11x'd your money. Okay. But there is a world where you can actually cut your ROI requirements in half to 25%, and you can beat that 11-time growth. Okay. And it's just by increasing the speed at which you turn your inventory. If you turn your inventory over 1 time every 30 days, which is doubling, it's a lot, okay? You now multiply that $100 by 1.25 to the 12th power, all right? And at the end of 12 months, you'd have approximately $1,455. You would have 14 times your money. Now, I know what someone will say, what if this and what if that? This assumes everything went perfectly. There were no bad buys, there were no returns, there was no lost inventory, because I cannot account for those things in this kind of math. All right. But the numbers hold true. Okay. And this, in my opinion, this is probably one of the reasons that is selling on an online marketplace, specifically Amazon, is really one of the best ways to start a business with very little capital that, available to you. I don't know. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I think it's people need to be, you need to be cognizant of what it takes to get to where you want to go. It's like I said in the beginning, you talk about, you can find a whole bunch of stuff on social media about if you have a couple $100 or and the wholesale people talk about just a couple $1,000 to get started. And then, there's this huge gap between that, the entry, the price of entry, and then you get to the $1 million sellers, and nobody seems to talk about that middle section, because I don't think that sells courses and coaching and whatnot, but that's what we want to get to. And talking about the speed of money, like, I'm glad you covered it, because you've done it so well, on your different channels. Yeah, it's actually in the execution. You can't be casual about this. If your goal is to scale, you really have to pay attention to the turnover, and you really have to concentrate on getting the money to work for you. This, if you want to start with a little bit of money, and you want really big orange numbers in the end, you can't waste time with the little bit of money that you do spend in there. It's about this turnover. And tell me if you agree with this. People, we go through waves of, we'll never not complain about price tankers. But I do believe that at least a portion of some of those downward pricing trends could possibly be people focusing on higher turnover rates. And then I think once it actually gets too low, and the part where you're slamming your fist on the desk, when you look up the pricing, I think those are people who don't execute it properly. But I think a lot of downward pressure on pricing is not only the volume of sellers coming in, but it's also the concept of people willing to take a little bit less ROI in order to turn it faster.
Yeah.
I think some of that is smart strategy. Some of it is also inexperienced sellers with a plum payment coming up that they're getting a little sweaty under the pits. But I think at least some of it is strategically sound.
I would agree with that. And the reason I would agree with that is that I heard a story about a person who was using a repricer. And right off the bat, like the minute their inventory checked in, they always price their inventory higher than the buy box on the way in to Amazon. But the moment their inventory went live, their repricer was set that their minimum was a 0% ROI. Okay. Now, that doesn't mean that that's what their inventory sold for. Okay. That's just the lowest price that it could go for. They wanted to make a profit, and most of their inventory, we'll say, 80-85% of it sold for much higher than that 0%. But they were completely focused on inventory turn. And I think they were turning over their inventory on average once every 14 days.
Wow.
They're doing retail arbitrage, buying it that day. At nighttime, it was all packed and shipped into Amazon. And by the time it would get live and things like that, they were selling out within 14 days of buying their inventory in a lot of cases.
That's incredible.
Absolutely. And there's not another platform where you could do that. And a lot of people would seem to get upset with them because, oh, well, 0% ROI, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But even if they're just getting a 10% ROI on their money, but they're able to turn that money 2 times a month, that's an insane return on your capital invested over the course of 12 months.
Yeah. And this is how many newer sellers do you hear with these unrealistic minimum ROI expectations? I know I've seen new sellers going, well, I really don't want to sell under 80% ROI. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
That's not realistic. It's
that was always one of the, when I was teaching a lot of tactical arbitrage, that was probably the number one mistake. Is I'm only looking for things with 100% ROI or better. You're not going to hit home runs every day. You need the singles and the doubles,
Yeah. And it's all, and it's, you need to, the more you realize the value of turning it over and getting your money moving faster. You'll get stuck with if you have unrealistic, or if you don't kind of stretch it and realize that turn it over faster is going to make you money, and it allows you to lower your ROI percentage. It's a tough lesson. It's kind of counterintuitive. It's you want to hit the home runs, and maybe you get a misconception when you first jump in this business that there are more home runs than there actually are. But you want that on base percentage. We're playing Billy Bean, Moneyball here,
right?
On base percentage.
And honestly, as we look at the marketplace mature, I mean, this is where Amazon wants us to go to, and people who go to where the puck is heading are going to be rewarded a little bit more often. We've got a lot of sports analogies today, so I apologize if you are not into sports. But
let's see how many sports we can throw in.
Right? Amazon does not want to hold on to our inventory. They want inventory to be in and out as quickly as possible. And we know that. They may not come out right out and say it, but we know that by the fees that they're charging and have charged. There are storage fees based on your cubic footage being used. Now there's low inventory level fees. There's long-term storage fees. There's all these fees that make it very clear that Amazon wants your stuff in and out as quickly as possible. And so moving in that direction and kind of going where Amazon wants you to go is not necessarily a bad move. You may not like it. I get that. I'd love to be able to just stuff 50,000 books, on FBA shelves and just sell books for the next 10 years. But it's just not a business model that really works for FBA at scale anymore.
Right.
Now, the next thing we should talk about is you need to be able to, I don't know, we should probably call this the ramen noodle business plan. The less that you can take out of your business and the more profit that you can reinvest, the faster you can grow, and the faster you can have that capital available to you that you need. Yeah, I don't know. I'm probably have never really been great at this, but I'm curious. What do you do in terms of reinvesting your profits into the business?
I I throw as much back into it as possible.
Hmm.
It's so basically, let's start with a summary. In order to make more money on Amazon, you need to make less money on your Amazon business. Like if you want money, you need to not take any. Um, it's like some sort of weird Karate Kid kind of thing going on there. But um, no, I started part time, and I think I still haven't written that Twitter thread. I haven't written anything in Twitter in a while. Um, but I, I I think it's such an advantage to be able to start this part time.
Hmm.
Um, because of the safety net from your full time income and the ability to reinvest everything. It's such a huge advantage if you could take the heaviest risk out of play by keeping a full time gig. Not only are you making your the set of mistakes that every new seller is going to make and has to get through, whichever they're different for everybody, but they're going to be a series of them. Um, you're learning the ropes, you're getting your reps in. Um, Nothing's going to be too devastating, as long as you don't
Hmm.
make silly decisions and take big risks on an inventory basis. Um, yeah, and it affords you, you get some uh, abilities to scale that, if you need this income, if you're forced to, um, pay your bills through your Amazon, that's going to handcuff you a little bit as far as scale. It's going to take extra effort to make up for that. Um, not the speed of money is probably a sibling to compounding. That's
Hmm.
essentially what we're talking about. They're closely related. Um, and if anything, if you've read about 401k loans, it's not only simply the money that you take from it, it's the fact that you're missing out on the compounding of that money as well. Um, the eighth wonder of the world. I think that was Benjamin Franklin that said that
Hmm.
compounding is the eighth wonder. Um, so yeah, so as much as you can put back in, the better. Um, Especially in the context that we're talking about, wanting to scale, wanting to get to those numbers. If you don't want to throw extra capital in from your personal funds, or sources that you have to find external to your own business, it's got to be the profits being put back in. Get
Yeah,
them, get them as fast as you can, and put as much of them back in to more inventory
absolutely.
that you
Yeah,
can.
yeah, and saying this, I'm not. I think that you should pay yourself a little bit, even from the very beginning,
Yeah, proof of concept, sure.
yeah, there's a proof of concept there. You should get a little bit of reward, for doing the work, and things like that, and I mean, if you read, um, oh shoot, I forget Mike Michalowicz's book, Profit First.
Profit first.
Yeah, you read Profit First. One of the buckets is paying yourself. But you don't have to pay yourself a six-figure salary. You know, buy yourself a cup of coffee every time you get paid, or something like that, and reinvest what you can. Um,
Yeah. In the beginning,
now,
I used to take just like I've always triggered payouts every week from
mhm,
Amazon. I'm set up. I have daily available to me, and then it'll automatically do it every 2 weeks. But I end up doing it just every week, um, kind of it because it matched my eBay payouts. They do it once a
no,
week
yeah,
as well. So I wanted everything to flow in around the same time. But early on, when I took, it was essentially what you just talked about, making sure you have a little something. It's not I wasn't building an income off of it, but I would take chunks of that payout and put it into a business savings account, which, if you don't have one, whatever bank you use for business checking probably has a very simple method to open up a free savings account. and I would just throw chunks in, just little bits each week, and then at the end of the year, whether it was like a Christmas fund or if I wanted to do it at the end of the calendar year or whenever, you could take it all at once. So it was a pretty decent chunk doing it on a regular basis. It was basically you didn't miss it, when you pulled it out, but on a weekly basis. But after a period of time, so it felt a little bit more rewarding.
I like
So
that.
that's how I
like that a
handled it.
lot. Yeah. I'll tell you one of the best ways to kind of build up some cash, in my opinion anyway, especially I know you have daily payouts, I have daily payouts. They seem to be more frequent for people these days than they were even 3 or 4 years ago. But daily payouts.
Yeah.
But merchant fulfilling. This is something you can do. I mean, to really make money almost on demand if you know how to source. If we go out, actually, I'll use an example in real life that's happening right this very second. Walgreens is having buy one get one free sales on a lot of items. Okay, now you're listening to this now and you're going to go look and you're going to say, well, that's not true. Well, you're right. It's going to be the week before, while we're recording this episode. But at this very moment, I can go and I can get these gummy vitamins that are buy one, get one free. There's another 20% off coupon code. And then I'll get 4% cash back and, another 2% on my credit card. So I can stack all that up. Now I know that there's something like 8 FBA sellers on this current listing that I was looking at earlier today, but the buy box in my area was a merchant fulfilled seller. Makes about $12 for every sale that's being made, and this thing sells something like 1,400 units according to softwares that are out there per month. I don't take that with a grain of salt. This thing's selling pretty well. Okay. It won't be too long that you won't be able to FBA these particular vitamins anymore. They will only be merchant fulfilled. And all of those sellers who are FBAing right now will probably forget that the item is profitable, and actually usually becomes a little bit more profitable in the summertime. And in my opinion, it's not something that, like, I'm not really worried about shipping it when it's 75 degrees out. I'd be more worried about shipping it when it's 110 degrees out, based on the research I've done. So I can go at this sale and the next sale, grab these things, make $12 to $15 per sale in profit, probably sell them all the same day from my local Walgreens, and ship them out and then be paid and get paid the very next day. If that's not, like, I don't know, that almost feels like it should be illegal.
Right. And that's the key thing. Now, despite the names that my wife calls me and the stuff that my friends talk about, I am not an MFer. But the key to merchant fulfilled FBM is that next day payout. You get your money so much faster. For people that didn't realize that. And again, it feeds into the very first thing that you talked about, the speed of money. It doesn't get any faster than that, right? And
Yeah.
not in the Amazon world. And it's actually somebody framed it as a way to build. I don't know if they were talking about a stable of replens or whatnot, but essentially they suggest your test buys be merchant fulfilled whenever possible. When it has to make sense. Obviously we're taking the sourcing skill out of it. But kind of talking about that part in a vacuum. But when it makes sense, actually do your test buys merchant fulfilled. So then by the time, so you've actually gotten the profit, you've gotten your buy cost and the profit back already when you go to make the next purchase, of a higher volume to send in. Now that it doesn't work for this gummy example, obviously, because that's multiple season is going to put a hitch in the giddy up there. But But that's actually, so that's the concept. And then a lot of people, if listeners aren't familiar with it, a lot of people talking Q4 a lot. That's kind of the height of the merchant fulfill talk. If you find something, and also we've seen examples that lead us to believe, if not full blown proof, that during Q4 Amazon will merchant fulfilled gets a bigger share of the buy box, or at least more often, because it becomes, the deliverability, the shorter period of time getting it to the customer as fast as possible takes precedent.
Yeah.
As we get closer to Christmas.
And honestly, I'm curious, over the next year, does that change become something that's a little bit more common outside of Q4? We know that, Amazon is changing to their spoken wheel, or what do they call it? They didn't call it spoken wheel, flywheel,
Flywheel, yeah.
method of distribution. And speed is the most important thing to them. That's why there is this, low level inventory and inbound shipping fees and things like that, because they want distributed inventory. But if speed is the most important thing to them, and you use things like 0-day handling and stuff like that, why would Amazon not give you the buy box locally if you are competitive with FBA sellers? I don't see why not.
Right.
In all honesty, it makes the most sense for them. If you've got a good track record of shipping and you're not taking up any space in their warehouse, and you can get it to the customer in a day or 2 days, like it just seems to make sense. They may make less commission, but they've got a heck of a lot less overhead in terms of storing, shipping, handling your inventory when you do all of it. I don't know. That's something I've been thinking about lately, that I would imagine that over the next year or so, FBM becomes something that is even more powerful outside of Q4 than it has been in the past.
Now, and devil's advocate to that is maybe it becomes more common, or Amazon favors it a little bit more often. But if this infrastructure, if the changes that Amazon's making to the FBA infrastructure with this inventory placement, if they fine tune that, it may not become more common, because they've simply shortened the period of time from when you click the button to to complete your purchase to when it's actually in your hand. If they can get those drones, to drop it on your front porch 2 hours after you bought it,
right?
That's a wrinkle in the FBM growth cycle.
That'll be interesting. We should probably touch on, I would imagine, most Amazon sellers' favorite thing. They're possibly the second favorite topic that I see people talk about, other than selling on Amazon, is credit cards. There's some people who absolutely live on their cashback credit cards. There are people who travel hack and go all over the world. And it's an excellent form of capital if used properly. So anyone who ever says, 29% interest isn't so bad, is lying to you. Okay. Can you beat 29% interest, based on turning inventory over? Yeah, you probably can, but not for very long, because it will snowball out of control. But I know for myself and for Chris, credit cards have been an excellent source of capital through the years when I didn't have other methods of attaining capital. And the benefits can be incredible. Now, this is not an Amazon business, but I do know of a business that gets $300,000 a year in cash back from their credit card. And depending on who you ask, and how willing your CPA is to go to jail, is whether or not that is completely untaxable money, or if it's something you need to tell the IRS about. So talk to your own CPA about that. But there are lots of
Yeah.
ways to use cash back outside of your business. So, um, I guess what tips do you have, or what would you tell people to do with credit cards in their Amazon business?
Well, in general, I tell them to be careful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's I hope people listening as we're going through these tips. I think the ways to get hung up are pretty clear. We're not addressing them because that's not the theme of the show. We're trying to talk about obtaining the capital. Obviously, there's risk involved. It's and even with the speed of money. We go back to the new seller that doesn't want anything below 80% ROI. You're going to have some stale inventory if you hold hard to that. If that's a hard line requirement, it's a dynamic marketplace. Prices are going to change. They're going to dip below where you want it to be, whether it's reasonable or unreasonable. And if it's unreasonable, you're sitting on inventory, and that stuff's not going to turn. And if you bought that inventory on a credit card, now you've got interest tacked on to it. Not only is it storage fees and Amazon fees from that you have to deal with slow moving inventory. Now you have to deal with interest depending on how you purchased it. So um, yeah, it's no joke. Like it's not good to carry a credit card balance. That's in the spirit of this is it's probably the quickest way. A credit card is the quickest way to throw some extra zeros on your sourcing budget. It's
Mm-hmm.
about the easiest, uh, most accessible way to become flush with sourcing capital for any seller, regardless of experience level. Um, because the business cards, you don't have to establish your business if you're not familiar with it. You'll apply with your personal credit. Um, Depending on the card that you're applying for, but most of the cards that I've applied for have just gone on personal credit scores.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've got just fairly decent credit, you shouldn't have too many issues. And you can instantly go from, well, I started with $500, built that up, throwing the profits back in. If you got a decent credit score, you can apply for a business card, and then all of a sudden you've got $10,000 or $15,000 plus the 500, to buy inventory. So in the theme of this episode, a way to scale up. This is one of the prime ways to do it if you haven't done it already.
Absolutely.
But there's the whole timing issue. There's we know how Amazon pays out. There's a lag period as far as when that money comes. The FBA part, not the FBM, obviously, like we just talked about, but there's a bit of an orchestration that has to be done between keeping these balances paid off, or paying them off on a responsible pace,
Yeah.
and the payouts. So
Yeah.
there is a dance to be done, but it's a great method overall.
Yeah. And make sure you're getting the credit card that works for you. Like, yeah, it's credit
Mm-hmm.
score is going to be a factor, of course. So, maybe you're not getting the top level American Express, but maybe you are getting an American Express Plum, which has the benefit of having 60 days to be able to pay off your balance. That can be helpful for
Mm-hmm.
cash flow. There are some credit cards that offer, I think 2.5% cash back over $5,000 spends. Um, but maybe you just want to travel
Mm-hmm.
too. Sometimes the travel perks are better on a per point to dollar value than a cash back card would be. Now, I'll be honest with you,
Right.
people start talking about travel hacking, and this is how many, pennies each point is worth. And I want to care, but I also, it's not in me. And so I tend to get blank when that kind of stuff happens. But I am sort of jealous, that other people are doing that kind of stuff. But yeah, just do the best thing for you, and really be careful. I don't think you see it a lot because most people aren't going to tell you if it happens. But I've seen 2 or 3 people who've
Right.
been very open and honest and just be like, you know what? I screwed up. I spent way too much on credit cards. I wasn't, sourcing well, and I had to throw in the towel, and I'm going to pay this off. And I don't know, maybe I'll try something else. Um,
Yeah.
be honest with
Plus, how
yourself
many
up front.
how many people that say, "Oh, Amazon's a scam," are actually
Hmm.
people who mismanage their credit card balances and just kind of
Exactly. Because we
never
blame
got
the putter, not the swing.
out of the debt. Exactly. Hey, we gotta. Can we fit curling in as a? That's the next sport we should try to fit in somewhere. There's got to be an
Let's
analogy.
see if
Or
we can do
bowling.
that. You set it up, and I'll knock them down. So
Right.
this next one is one that I don't really, I've never done before, but I know you have, and that would be a business line
Mhm.
of credit. Something I probably should do. Um, can you tell us a little bit about the process and I guess maybe the good, the bad, and the ugly about getting a business line of credit?
Yeah. Now, my experience with business lines of credit is a little bit different than what you see most of the time. Because I think a whole bunch of sellers, probably the majority of sellers are going to get some sort of offer from Amazon themselves. Little windows pop up and they offer, they partner with companies like Marcus, and I forget some of the other names. I've hidden those because I can't stand the temptation. Um, but and those will be repaid through your Amazon payouts. Uh, I'm not familiar with that. I've never taken one of those. You hear good and bad. I've actually used to hear a lot of good. A lot of people saying how beneficial it was, and only recently now am I starting to hear some people saying that maybe it's not the best route to go. So that's for you to determine. My experience with business lines of credit was actually through the SBA, the Small Business Association. Um, I went through. I opened up my business checking accounts plural, which is another profit first reference there. Um, but I actually went in person, and the manager that I was dealing with in the branch was a good guy. We got along well. Um, and it was kind of through the questions. He's like, "Well, what are you doing?" Because it's when you kind of set down your financials, it's not always apparent what exactly we do. Um, so it just through conversation, he's like, "Oh, I gotta." He knew somebody that did it too, so he's a little bit familiar with the business model. And and I was setting up a checking account, but he threw this out there. He goes, "You know what? The SBA has got some really good stuff, and I don't know if this is maybe pandemic related or kind of like residual credit availability, due to the circumstances that they were trying to counteract or not, but or maybe it's just how it is." But basically, he told me about an SBA backed business line of credit, and this is through iBank. My business banking is in Huntington Bank. Um, but you'll want to check with your local branch if they have access to SBA products. But essentially, it was all I needed to show them was a year of Amazon sales, and the you get a lot of you hear a lot of flack about the orange bars, but apparently the SBA only cares about the orange bars.
Hmm.
They don't need to know about your expenses or whatnot. It is gross sales over 12 months on
Hmm.
Amazon is all I needed to show as far as business, business numbers. Um, Now it's a little bit more paperwork. It's not going to be click a button on Amazon and you're instantly approved based on things that Amazon has already determined or has access to quickly. It is a process. It's a old fashioned in the bank. It can be done over email, but there's paperwork. But if you get through that, which I did, and I actually got an SBA loan, which is really nice that it's through the same bank that I have my business checking accounts through. and that savings account that I talked about. So it's all on the same page of my online banking, and I can just pay it as you go. And it's essentially a line of credit. If you're not familiar, is basically a credit card, except it's the collateral is business. It would be your inventory and whatnot. It's not not what's secure, and it's a secured loan. Based on the value of your business and any assets that your business would have. So, but it works in the same way. I can draw money out, I pay money in, and I can actually, I'll do it all online. Just make a request, and it flows immediately to my checking account, and then I send it wherever it needs to go from there. It's like a 5-year draw period, with, as long as everything goes okay. They said you can renew that pretty easily, over and over again is how he made it sound. So you can get 5-year periods. If worst case scenario, that 5-year draw period where you're pulling money and paying it off ends, and then it would go into repayment, where basically it becomes fully amortized, to where I forget what the term is after that. I don't know if they give you 5 or 10 years to pay it off, but they would amortize it over that period of time to where it would ends up as a zero balance, is what that means. So you're not, but in that 5-year draw period, you're only making interest only payments. So, so there's a ton of flexibility. And I was told I can actually go in each year, every time you get a fresh 12 months of Amazon sales data, because I got it in my first year. So that number is pretty low. It's not a very big line of credit when I first started out. You can actually reapply with fresh sales numbers and actually get a bigger line as your business progresses.
Oh, that's solid. Yeah, that's
Mm-hmm.
not bad at all. Yeah, that's another great option. But there is now. I happened to be on a live yesterday. Just I ended up subbing in for somebody who was running late, and one of the questions I got was, should I use my HELOC or home equity line of credit? Please do not do that. Okay, don't ever use something that's going to put you at risk of losing something like your house, or or anything that might affect your family or your kids. But
Right.
that business line of credit is I may have to go look into that now.
Yeah, it was so easy. I mean,
Yeah.
it was intimidating because I thought there was going to be so much to it, but yeah, it
Well, I mean,
really wasn't as difficult.
if you read all the, there's probably 2 or 3 SBA guys I follow on social media. I think one of them is like an SBA attorney, and 2 of
Mhm.
them are like SBA loan guys. And I mean, they make it seem like an absolute nightmare to do anything.
Well, I
With the
think directly
SBA.
from the SBA, it's it's really confusing. I mean, they're not, if they were a cell phone, they would not be, user friendly. It would not be, the app menu would be a mess. But and to cap everything off, even with the prime rate increases, that business line of credit right now is sitting at 10.5%. So
Oh, that's solid. Yeah.
yeah, if you do have some credit card debt that you're carrying, or you get in some, the flow of everything is a little bit off, not quite calibrated the way you need it to be, you could take that 29% debt and put it on 10.5, while you pay it off. So because every little bit helps.
Absolutely.
We can't sit here and scribble over an extra 2% cash back and not appreciate the getting something from 29 to 10%, the impact that
E-
would have.
Exactly. So yeah, and that is a much better option. I have I have talked with some people in the past who have um, they took loans from loan sharks to just really get their Amazon business up and running. The guy was wearing cowboy boots and a dress shirt that was unbuttoned down to his navel, and gold chains. The guy was a loan shark, charging like 20%
Good luck.
interest back in the day. Uh, but that business line of credit is a much better option. Um, Now the last thing, and this one is going to sound like a no brainer, but it is. It's very easy not to do this. People talk about lifestyle creep. You you make some more money, and all of a sudden you go from having a paid off car to, well, I really do need that Beamer or that Mercedes to keep up with the Joneses, and now I've got, the $750 or $1,000 a month lease payment. Well, there is something very, very similar that happens as you grow in a business. You get business, I don't know, what do we call it? Business lifestyle creep? I don't know. But you hear about a
Expense
tool that
account
your
creep.
friend, right? You hear about a tool that your friend is using. You hear about that new software that's coming out, and you grab it, and oh, I don't really worry about this. And then 2 and 3 years later, you're like, oh, I still pay for that, and you haven't touched it. I am extremely guilty of this. Matter of fact, we at the beginning of the year, we cut a bunch of expenses, both business and personal, just because so many things had creeped in over time. And I mean, the number was a little embarrassing. I could not believe, what we could get rid of. And it's incredibly important to try to run a lean business, especially at the beginning. All you really need is Keepa. It's very helpful to have a profit calculator as well. But you can get away with it because Amazon does have a free one, even though it has a lot to be. It could use some brushing up. But there's a lot of other things you can do to run a lean business. I saw a great example of this the other day. Guy was sending out a shipment. All of the boxes were used boxes. All right. Boxes only cost $1.25 to $1.50 a piece, but if you're sending out 40 or 50 or 100 boxes at a time, that adds up. If you can get those boxes for free, which is fairly easy to do, it really helps. Just make sure that you're not using liquor boxes. No liquor, no beer boxes.
Right.
Can't send those in, unfortunately. Some other things that you can do to kind of run a lean business is, I don't suggest this, but you can let Amazon do some prep for you. And I don't necessarily mean polybagging, but I do mean like FNSKU stickers. If it's a prep center or letting Amazon do FNSKU stickers, it is cheaper for them to do it. It's just, I don't trust them with my inventory is the problem. I know other people who do that all the time, and it works 100% of the time for them without any issues. But you really, really got to watch the bottom line and those creeping expenses. You have any examples of running a lean business?
Yeah, as far as shipping materials, if you're doing OA and it's being shipped to your house, things like boxes and dunnage, any craft paper that they're using, take advantage of, especially Walmart and Amazon. The item itself compared to the box that it comes in, there's quite a difference sometimes, and the times that they're going to fill that up with craft paper and free bubble wrap and air pillows, you can take advantage of that if you have the space. I won't show anyone my garage right now, but
that reminds me about something, and this is something I just totally forgot about till just now. But when we were doing heavy retail arbitrage, we would go to a gas station that wasn't too far away that sold newspapers, and they would let us have their day-old newspapers for like half price. Okay.
nice.
So I think, and if it was so, and I would always go on Monday. So the Columbus Dispatch was $1.75 on Sundays. But I would go on Monday and I'd be like, hey, can I buy yesterday's dispatch, the Sunday dispatch? And I would get it for half price. So I'd buy every single one I could get. And then we would stuff those inside of the plastic bags from Meijer, Kroger, Walgreens, etc. And we'd use that as dunnage. It was a heck of a lot cheaper. And it works just as well.
Yeah.
And it's totally within terms of service. And then there are other ways to cut down on your expenses. Like how many, hopefully everyone is resizing their boxes when they go in
Mm-hmm.
and trying to make them as small as absolutely possible, because you are paying dimensional weight, and
Yep.
it will help to be able to get that down. But there are all kinds of ways that you can drop the price, or sorry, you can save money here and there, and it's incredibly important.
Yeah, and it's all consistent. Like I just said, you're scrambling over extra percentages on cash back. You need to be scrambling over those couple of inches on the top of the box that you didn't quite fill up,
Mm-hmm.
because it all counts. And here's breaking news. This didn't make it into the beginning session, but for the newer sellers out there, you do not need a Rolo printer. Uh, that's we kind of we covered it quickly, but there are plenty, depending on how you enter this industry and who the voices are, the educators and the mentors that whatever channel you fall in that brings you in here, you'll probably hear something different from all of them. But there are ones out there that will sell you, I call them starter kits. And there's a certain amount of them that you see for sale a few months after sellers that uh, didn't didn't fare too well. But I always look at those and like, hey, I've got a Rolo printer, and they always seem to have so much inventory. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they've got like the amount of SKU labels, FN SKU labels that it's like a 3 or 4 month supply. Like, why did you buy so much? Like
Yeah,
that's it. And I'm not making fun of well, I am, but the bigger point than just teasing them is that's capital that could have been inventory. You know,
absolutely.
it seems maybe trivial, at first, or just haha, Chris is picking on him, but that could have been the difference between you giving up this venture and selling your equipment to actually having enough money to put back into the inventory, or back into the system wherever it was that where
Mm-hmm.
it failed you.
This may not, um, I may not be hitting exactly on the mark here, but if you just spend an extra $20 in Rolo labels or Dymo labels or whatever it is, that's $20 you cannot go and spend at Dollar Tree. And
Right.
I know it's a buck 25 now, but let's go back to the days when everything was a dollar. You could easily find 20 items at the Dollar Tree that should be able to make you $20 in profit. It might be a little hard, but you can do it. Okay? And I mean, it is that kind of mindset, in my opinion, that really will, it'll be the differentiator between those um who make it and those who don't. You know,
Hmm.
heck, how what Rockefeller's a huge proponent of this. So heck, every single major wealthy business owner has been a proponent of this over the years. Sam Walton was a massive proponent of saving every penny. Uh,
Right.
the guy who, I always forget his name, the guy who started Costco was the same way. It was very important to watch the bottom line. John D. Rockefeller talked about it all the time. Matter of fact, he was a trained accountant before he started his business. Um, it's massively important, and it's something that I know that even I, still don't run as lean of an operation as I probably should.
Yeah. And the it's probably cliche by now, but they say, rich people, they're rich because they don't give away their money frivolously.
Yeah.
It's the art of keeping your money is a skill equal to obtaining it, a lot of the time. And we're still kind of into the new year. We're mid Q1 right now, and so we're not that far away from talking about resolutions and the new year and whatnot. So you can echo that sentiment. It's take a look. Audit your toolkit. Look at what you're spending. Like you said at the beginning of the year, you did it with your own finances, and I do it too. I do it, on a regular basis. It doesn't even have to be a new year. I just kind of try to take a fresh look whenever I can periodically. But look at the tools that you're paying for, and I actually did it as part of a KPI that I'm building, that I basically I want to know what my monthly nut is, like where's my break even point? I was trying to fine tune that. And, so I was trying to take stuff that I pay annually, divide that into a monthly and just kind of get everything in line so I could actually measure it a little bit more precisely. And that's when I realized that there were tools that I was paying for that I wasn't not using them, but I wasn't getting sufficient value, and the one example that I used on social media, you also have to be aware of the tools that you do have and you use, how they improve and how they advance, and there was one tool that I ended up canceling that I realized another tool that I pay for had added features that basically made it redundant. The two of them overlap. So I was able to do everything that I was paying, not a whole lot of money, but I was paying monthly for. And I could do it with something that was cheaper, that I've had even longer than this other tool. So I canceled that and I freed up some money that way. So, but it sounds so stupid because I kept it longer than I needed to because it was cheap. It's, and that's essentially, if there was like one frame of mind to summarize, this running a lean business concept, is know why you're paying for stuff. It's don't just keep something because, well, that's how it's always been. I've always had it. That's not a valid reason.
Absolutely. So we've got a quote of the week this week, of course, and in my opinion, this one really puts the stone right on target. And there is that curling for you.
That is.
So I'd like you to read this one because I know you did the research on this one.
Yeah, it's flowing right into what we just talked about. The quote is, "Beware of little expenses. A small leak will sink a great ship." That's Benjamin Franklin, and that is the cherry on top of especially the last part that we talked about. But yeah, I running lean. We talked about pre-show. There's some people just grab everything, and it's like, oh, you can never have too much. And I personally disagree, and I apparently Benjamin Franklin disagrees as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't know. I like tools, and the problem is it can just become way, way too much. So, all right, guys, that is the show for the week. Hopefully you got a little something out of this, and if so, let us know in the comments. Leave a note or hit the subscribe button. We'd really appreciate it. We'll be back next week with another episode. Until then, guys, that's the pod. Thanks for listening to Clear the Shelf with Chris and Chris. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a screenshot on your phone and share to Facebook, Instagram, or your favorite FBA group, and be sure to tag me and let me know why you liked it and what you'd like to hear more from us in the future. Also, I'd like to give you some free gifts for listening. Head over to rabbittrailchallenge.com and repricerchallenge.com for some free courses to further your business. Thanks for listening.